Patrick. Well, of course, if that agenda is happening in the United States, it's certainly happening in UK. So let's have a look at this Sky headline here. Royal Air Force unlawfully discriminated against white male recruits in bid to boost diversity, and inquiry finds. And just a little bit of the story here is that basically a number of white male recruits exceeded the requirements in order to be accepted into the Royal Air Force, but they were rejected simply on the colour of their skin, their age and their sex. This has then broken surface. A senior officer had to also did step down in disgust of what was happening, but who is now squirming as he has to talk about it, it's Ben Wallace. Let's have a look at this little clip and listen carefully to what he says or doesn't say.
They didn't lower the standard. They discriminated against those people that were applying who were above the standard. So our military output wasn't put at risk. However, the treatment of the people applying was wrong, unsatisfactory. I also think that the treatment of the officer who raised concerns and her very genuine worries being ignored was something that needs to be looked at considerably about why she was ignored, why indeed she was put under that pressure. And I don't want to see anyone put under pressure to do something like what we've seen in the RAF, but I have committed that I will be publishing almost in full the whole report, I think as full as I can publish it, and then we can discuss about what happens next.
So there he is, Ben Wallace, squirming, but of course the output of the military was put at risk because better qualified candidates were rejected simply on the basis they were white, they were male. So he's not telling the truth there, but did you notice he couldn't even refer to white male candidates? They were changed into the people. Well, of course, with his hand on the tiller, the military in UK is dissolving under the weight of the woke agenda. I went and had a look at the Ministry of Defence Twitter page earlier today, where I found this: "Let's talk pride" with Flight Lieutenant Louise Tagg. Before joining the forces, she played volleyball for England and now represents the Royal Air Force in various sports. And Adam Powney spoke to her for our podcast series, Serving with Pride. It was totally worth it. Let's have a look at this clip.
This AS1 had recently identified as non-binary, and as a result, they had to make a decision about uniform. But they were also incredibly pleased that they were even given a choice. So during the march, I was talking to them about the uniform, and they said, I've chosen to wear the male uniform because for me, that just feels like the right thing to wear. And it was incredible to see how just something as simple as changing their uniform, changing from a skirt to a pair of trousers, made them feel so much more at home and so much more relaxed, and that showed on their face. And throughout the whole march, they were smiling, they were happy. And you just think, if all we had to do was change one piece of uniform to get that reaction, it was totally worth it.
Well, Patrick, I've got to say, I've heard that the Russians are absolutely terrified, having seen this particular clip. So we are to believe that the armed forces are now at a stage where if somebody doesn't get the right pair of trousers or dress, they could be unhappy, and that would mean that we can't fulfill the function of defence. This is woke, gone completely mad. I've watched that little clip several times. I think it's utterly amazing that we've sunk to these levels.
And well, they should be. The Russians should be concerned about this. This is a major challenge to the military dominance on the battlefield, but no problem. They can still deploy the Unicorn Brigade and Sarah Ashton Cirillo there in Kharkiv. Perhaps they can join forces. Maybe the RAF can join the Unicorn Brigade and do a little recon on the front lines. I don't know.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, I do know, and it will be happening already. But of course, the woke agenda isn't just in the military, it's also in our schools. And let's have a look at this tweet from Andrew Bridgen here. He says he's been informed by former colleagues in the Conservative Party that their whip's office warned them not to vote for my child protection bill. So once again, we're getting a glimpse that if we look at the Conservatives at least, basically we're not going to get any protection for children. On the contrary, they're going to go the other way. Let's hear a little bit about what Andrew Bridgen had to say in the House.
Andrew Bridgen.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I seek leave of the House to bring in a bill to prohibit the promotion of social transition practices in schools, to require schools to inform parents if their child has indicated an intention to pursue or has commenced social transition, to provide for a right for parents to access information about lessons in schools, to make provision about the teaching of the concept of gender identity in schools, and for connected purposes. Madam Deputy Speaker, the issue I bring to the House today needs a bill, the very necessity of which is both grotesque and revealing of an absurdity, that turning a blind eye to the real-world effects of what seemingly good faith legislation has had on our education system, schools and society as a whole. So we may all be clear on what the proposed bill refers, let me start by defining the terms mentioned. Gender identity is the theory that, though we may be biologically male or female, the more important characteristic is what we actually feel like on the inside. Social transitioning is the conscious act of self-rejection of our biological reality. Cases of this happening used to be one of the clearest examples we've ever had of an exception that proves the rule. I'm sickened to say that under all our noses, members of society, either politically or educationally tasked with helping bring up our children, have turned raising the next generation into a science experiment.
Well, couldn't say it better, but at least we've got Andrew Bridgen speaking out. As somebody said in the chat box just now, it's almost like he's the only MP brave enough to speak on anything in the House. But he was challenged pretty viciously by this man, Ben Bradshaw, the MP for Exeter. Evening Standard a little while ago had this headline: trans community even more set upon than gay and lesbian people were, says MP. And he apparently hopes that the UK Parliament will soon have a trans MP. So the Tories ganged up on Andrew Bridgen, but we also had Ben Bradshaw ready to leap in and help crush what Andrew Bridgen was trying to do. Now, I'll just add in here that yesterday I was able to do another interview with Kim Isherwood from Public Child Protection Wales. Really interesting discussion. She was reporting how they are getting on in challenging this terrible agenda in schools. And of course, we very quickly got into the power of the woke agenda and how it is unleashing its destruction really across UK society. That can be no accident, but we'll have that interview up on the UK Column website as soon as possible.